Okay, I think we're ready to call the meeting to order. Our roll call will reflect all of the trustees are present, and Dr. Beebe, of course. And welcome to our audience, who is pretty numerous for what we have been seeing lately, but I guess we're starting the new school year, so it's nice to have people come. Our first item here will be recognitions. Anthony?
Yes, we do have 3 recognitions. The first one is Fabiola Hernandez, and Beth Rizzo is here to provide some remarks. Beth is not here? Yeah.
I haven't done this before. Good afternoon. I have the pleasure of speaking on behalf of Fabiola Hernandez, who has been with us for 10 years at Orfalea Early Learning Center. And in addition to that, she was a student through the early childhood program and the lab school. And then she was an intern and went on to get her BA at Cal State Northridge. Came back to us and has been working with children and working with students and families since I started in 2007, sorry. She's such a great addition. She develops great relationships with the children and the students, and it's just a privilege that we're honoring her today for her 10 years.
Actually, Beth, you can come back down again. The next person is Beth Rizzo, and Alan Price is here to say a few remarks.
Well, good afternoon, Dr. Beebe and esteemed Board of Trustees. I have the privilege of saying a few words on Beth Rizzo, but I have to admit up front that I just learned of a few minutes ago that I would be speaking. So normally when I come to such a glorious event, I like to be a little bit more prepared and have a script ready. So instead of a script, I will be speaking from the heart. Beth Rizzo is celebrating 10 years of her life with Santa Barbara City College. And while I could go on and talk about what she did prior, her master's from Cal State Northridge and her bachelor's from Pacific Oaks and the numerous teaching positions and director positions, I really want to say a few words on her time with us. Beth is the director of the Orfalea Early Learning Center, and she really is the face of the center. But it's more than that. It's more than the operations of the center. It's more than the support that she provides to countless preschool children and the families that rely on her services. No, what Beth is doing is changing lives. She changes lives on a daily basis by the engagement that she gives to such a young group of human beings, and what she is teaching is so important. She teaches the basics of what it means to be a good human being. She teaches the tenets of sharing. She teaches the tenets that we need to be good and treat each one of us with respect. She treats that love trumps hate, no alignment to a political statement on that one. But more importantly, she teaches the young generation that they, at some point, will be the next generation to carry forward the stewardness and the need for them to be good human beings. For that, she is so invaluable. For that, she is appreciated. And for that, I want to say publicly, thank you, Beth. Thank you so much for all that you do for Santa Barbara City College.
Nicely said. And then finally, we have James Watson, and we have John Clark that's here to speak on James's behalf.
I always get Jim Clark's emails. Hi, I'm John Clark. I'm the chairman of the music department, and it's my pleasure to speak here on behalf of James Watson's 10 years of service to this college. My acquaintance with James goes beyond that. I've known him for about 15 years. He was a student in my second year theory class, an outstanding student. He's a tremendous musician, fabulous trumpet player and guitar player. And after his work in the schools, in the classes here, he went on to San Francisco State and actually worked there in the same job that he's got now. The music department depends so much on his excellence in teaching. He's a fantastic instructor. I already said he's a fantastic musician, and he is so helpful in every aspect of the music department. I've been the chairman for 11 years. 10 of those, James has worked with me, and I can honestly say I could not do the job without him. So many times, problems are solved before I even hear about them. That's really what you're shooting for as an administrator.
Perfect.
Yeah. The problem is solved before you hear about it, and that happens all the time. He's also a fantastic pilot. He has his instrument rating. Do you have that multi-engine rating yet? Okay, well, we're going to need that to fly up to Reno. Fantastic. I have flown with him. I would do it any time. He's a tremendous aviator. And also, I call him a friend. And very, very happy to work with him every single day. The college is better off because of people like James Watson and the other employees that have been honored here today. So it's my pleasure to chime in on that on behalf of James Watson. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. And that concludes our recognitions.
Okay, well, thank you, Fabiola, Beth, and James. We appreciate what you're doing for our college. Thank you. That takes us to the minutes of the meeting of August 10th, 2017. Could I have a motion to approve? Greg, second.
Second.
Veronica, any comments, questions, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Public comment. Angie, any public comment?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Report by Academic Senate. Priscilla Butler, welcome back.
I don't think she really left. I
No,
think she was pretty
didn't
much
really
here.
leave, but
Well, it's good to see you again. Good evening, board members, Dr. Beebe. I wanted to talk about three main things in the Senate report. First is about our faculty in service. So some of you were able to attend the Thursday all-campus kickoff, and thank you for coming. Davis Jenkins was a marvelous source of information and inspiration. We wanted to carry that forward to our Friday in-service, which is held on Friday mornings. Typically, we have an hour and a half, but we were able to get almost 3 hours. And Dr. Gerald and I worked with the faculty. We wanted to give them a little more detailed information about guided pathways, keeping that theme. And we also had a work group style meeting in the second half where we invited faculty to reflect on some of the data that we have for our school and what that might mean for us moving forward, thinking about the very first steps in planning the guided pathways efforts. So we got a lot of great feedback from that, which we're integrating into one of our first homework assignments for the California Guided Pathways Project. And it's our intention moving forward that we continue to involve as many people as possible. This time we were focused on Friday with the faculty, but my hope certainly is that all of our employees have an opportunity to contribute to this effort as we embark on our planning year. So this year is the planning year, and that's a great thing. We're excited about that. I mentioned at the last board meeting that one of the Academic Senate efforts this fall is the Fall Faculty Lecture Series. And since then, and I want to express again appreciation to marketing and to facilities who are both incredibly helpful in getting a poster campaign done very, very quickly. So each classroom has now a poster which promotes these 3 events that we're having. The first one is on September 26th, and it was by an amazing stroke of luck or serendipity that it coincides with the National Voter Registration Day. And so, that's so incredible. And so this morning I was taking part in a webinar which was about being one of the official National Voter Registration Day participants. And I had the opportunity to meet with the new ASG president, Charlotte, and we talked about how the students and faculty could work together to host that type of effort to coincide with our faculty lecture series. And I don't recall if I mentioned, but another happy coincidence is that the October event, the Fall Faculty Lecture Series, and I promise you this is not planned, this is just amazing strokes of luck. The second lecture series is back-to-back with the mayoral debates that the foundation is hosting. So we'd like to continue the voter registration effort on both of those days. And so that's very exciting, and as Charlotte and I talk more together, I'm sure we'll have more details on that. The last thing I wanted to mention was something I also shared in my all-campus or all-faculty email a little while ago. At the forum, and it will be an agenda item also on the August 30th Senate agenda, which is our first official meeting of the year. I shared the statement that Julie Bruno, who's the president of the statewide academic senate, that she sent out after the events in Charlottesville. And I know a little bit of time has elapsed, but I don't think that it's possible to be too clear or too repetitive in the response to those events and the aftermath. And I also want to thank Dr. Beebe for the address he gave at our kickoff with a very clear statement on the administrative position regarding that. And I think it's worth mentioning in all public forums where we stand on acts of violence, hatred, bigotry, racism, any of those things. And so I wanted to, in this public forum, take 1 minute or so to read an excerpt from Julie Bruno's letter regarding these events. So she says, "Let us stand together in solidarity to condemn racism, bigotry, and hatred, reaffirm our values of diversity, inclusion, and justice, and commit to action that will serve as a model to those who look to us as educational leaders in our communities. As you begin the fall term, I encourage you to engage your students and colleagues in conversations that reject assumptions that objectify and discriminate, challenge belief systems that endorse violence toward others, and create and hold the space needed to nurture understanding and empathy. As educators, let us lead the way in enacting civility, engagement, and respect in our classrooms, our colleges, and our communities." And I couldn't have said it better, so thank you to Julie Bruno for that. That's my report.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. Charlotte Rochard, our Associated Students President, welcome.
Dr. Beebe, President Croninger, Board of Trustee, My name is Charlotte Donnet-Rochard, and last spring, during an election that saw a record engagement rate from our student body elected me their president. I am extremely honored by this position, although I already feel very strongly the duties and responsibilities that come with it. First of all, making sure that the students' votes are honored. Only if our Student Senate stands united, acts fairly, and with the sole interest of the general student population, will we be able to accomplish what is needed of us, especially during this time where financial restraints are needed, something that is directly going to impact all of us. Only if we take the pledge to collaborate together will we be able to minimize and alleviate some of the pain and inconveniences that might be generated by necessary budget cuts. As of right now, we have open application to fill new position and are getting ready for Club Day that will be on September 6th. Board of Trustees, I am looking forward to report to you this year, as I hope we will serve our students in the best way we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Charlotte. Classified employees, Liz?
Good afternoon, Board President, members of the board. The Classified Consultation Group met yesterday, and I'm happy to report that we're now at full strength. We've been able to replace our 6 retirees, so we now have everyone present. We talked about the budget and about the possibility, it came up at CPC, the possibility of a hiring freeze. So the members are going to be, we'll probably be talking about it more, but they'll also be trying to send ideas for that solutions, because that is a very difficult thing. But I think from looking at the budget, we understand, what's going on and the deficit, the ongoing, and that something needs to be done about it. I also just wanted to concur with Dr. Butler and the president about this college isn't about hate. It's not about bigotry. It's not about all that. We have to support each other, do the best for everyone, and not fall into that trap that happens in others. And I think pretty much we are that way. I saw everything happening, in other cities, and I know that's not here. So we have to make sure we maintain that and make sure about that. But I appreciated Dr. Beebe's waypoint and what Priscilla said, and so I think that the staff agree with that this is a place that there's no place for that in it. So.
Thank you, Liz. Report from our president, Anthony.
Thank you. As you know, we hired 12 faculty, and when you go through the hiring process here and you put in an announcement out that Santa Barbara City College is looking for a faculty member, we get hundreds of applicants. And so those hundreds of applicants then are screened for minimum quals. They go through the first level of interviews with a large committee. Content experts are evaluating the candidates. They then go through a final interview with myself, Dr. Jarrell, and the department chair. Reference checks are done, extensive reference checks. And then through all of this process, you end up with the person that we end up hiring. They bubble to the top. And when you think about how popular it is to be able to come to Santa Barbara City College, this is quite an accomplishment. And we've got 12 stellar candidates, new faculty members here that I want to just tell you just a little bit about. I'll go through them fairly quickly, but the new philosophy instructor, Dr. Chris Kramer, comes from Illinois, Rockford, Illinois. He has his PhD from Marquette University and MA from San Diego State University. He's been teaching for about 10 years at Rock Valley College in Rockford, Illinois. A little note here that I have is that he's also a bass player. And I just make a little note of that because we've got some other folks here. We may end up being able to come up with, I think, a garage band at some point. So we'll see. Chris, I appreciate him being here. Chemistry professor, Chris Burnt, is finishing his PhD from UCSB, has extensive teaching experience at San Francisco State, at UCSB. He's actually from Alaska, and apparently he has a little bit of a hankering, and he misses snow sometimes, so I think we're going to get a snow machine maybe and put that over there so he doesn't get any feelings like he wants to go back to Alaska. I don't think he does. That's chemistry. Mathematics instructor Daniel Giles has a master's degree in mathematics from Portland State University. He is incredibly passionate about math, loves it. He's a former merchant marine, and just has a fascinating background. And Dan, I'm so glad that you're here. In the social or the justice studies program, we have David Sanders, and David is here. He's a local I was going to say boy, but he's a local man from Santa Barbara. He actually went to Santa Barbara City College, has worked in the law enforcement arena for a long time. I think it's about 30 years, right, David, something like that? And has worked in the as an investigator for the Santa Barbara and Ventura District Attorney's Office. Has a huge commitment, a huge commitment to the students here and having their success at Santa Barbara City College. And I don't think that he has gotten rid of that smile since he got notified that he was the new Justice Studies professor. I will also say that in speaking with District Attorney Joyce Dudley, she said nothing but highest praise for David. Mathematics professor, Dr. Elizabeth Chisholm, has her PhD in mathematics from UCSB's, tremendous teaching experience working at Ventura Community College, and she's also taught here, several other areas, done some tremendous research and so on. And so we're just thrilled that Dr. Chisholm is here in our mathematics program. Graphics design, we have James Van Arsdale. You may have recently read about James in the Montecito Journal. He had quite a write-up there talking about his accomplishments and all the great things that he's done here in Santa Barbara. He's been a long-time Santa Barbara resident, and he's also a guitar player. So there's another addition to our garage band. In the biology department, we have Dr. Jennifer Betancourt, and she has her PhD in molecular biology from UC Santa Cruz. Again, tremendous teaching experience. We are a teaching institution, so that has a high priority for us. We had tremendous candidates with all kinds of research and publications and things like that, but that really takes a second slot for us. Teaching is number one. That's what we do here, and we do it very well. And so really glad that she's here with us. In the ADN program, the Associate Degree in Nursing program, we have Mary Sullivan. She has her master's degree from Arizona State University. Lots of teaching experience, not just in a community college, but also in the four-year arena. Her specialty area is working with newborns, and she's done that at Cottage. And so we're thrilled to have her here. In the vocational nursing area, we have Maureen Horner, who has her bachelor's in nursing from San Jose State, longtime adjunct for Santa Barbara City College, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of something like 20 plus years as an adjunct here. So I really find it admirable that we have adjunct faculty members that are so committed to be here for that long duration, and it's thrilling to be able to turn them into a full-time faculty member here. So thrilled about that. Natalie Gubalis is our computer science instructor. She has a degree in electrical and computer engineering. Lots of industry experience, which is fantastic for somebody in the career technical education, because she can not only just talk about the theory, but she talks about what it's like, after you get done with your degree and actually working on the job, and I'm so glad that Natalie's here. Communications faculty member Rebecca Gutierrez has her master's degree from CSU Long Beach. She's a native of the Oxnard area, taught at community colleges extensively, and a great passion for working with students in the communications arena. And then finally, in our earth sciences area, we have Dr. Stephanie Mendez, and she has her PhD from UCSB. I remember when we had the final interview with her, one of the things that she said was, students inspire and energize me, and at that point it was, she just went off and just was all excited about the whole concept of working with students and STEM students particularly. So I'm absolutely thrilled with these faculty members. I think they bring such a wealth of knowledge and diversity and academics that it's going to really add to our overall faculty group. So welcome to you all.
Anthony, could we, if they're here, could we identify them and have them stand and?
Yeah, do you want to stand up?
Be identified.
Be identified. Why don't you basically let us know who you are? Hey, James, thank you.
I'm Dave Saunders with the School of Justice Studies. And they were all invited, but I suspect that quite a few of them are in the classroom right now. They all
I have one last thing, and I'd like to have Luz Reyes Martin come up and talk a little bit about an event that's going to be taking place on Saturday.
Thank you, Dr. Beebe, President Croninger, and trustees. Just to make an announcement about the event that's happening on Saturday, which you should have been informed about by now. But we're happy, the college is happy to have on our campus a conversation with Attorney General Javier Becerra, the California Attorney General. This is an event hosted by Congressman Salud Carbajal, Assemblymember Monique Limon, and our State Senator Hannah Beth Jackson. So they're coming together to have a conversation with him. It's going to focus on civil rights, education, and the environment. It's at 1:30 at the BC Forum. So I really want to give a plug for all of the team in our business services department, from administration to security to facilities, the whole team coming together to help make this happen with this group on a very short time frame. But I think it's a great opportunity for this campus to have these important elected officials on our campus. It's a free event open to the public, and they're really hoping to get students out. So I've been reaching out to ASG and a couple of other student groups on campus to try to spread the word and have students attend what will be a unique event and opportunity. And if you have any questions, you can please let me know, and I hope to see many of you there if you can make it.
Will the event be our video recorded?
I believe their staff will be doing a Facebook Live event, so I can send that link out. But we didn't have enough time to set up a college live stream, but they will be streaming it on Facebook.
Thank you, Luz. It's exciting for us to hear about these events for both the college and the community.
Yeah.
Report from board members. So our legislative liaison, Jonathan?
So right before the legislative update, we had our Hope Ranch event, and it went well. We had around 10 people made it, but we gave a good presentation. We got the word out. I think everybody there was really excited about adult education coming back for free, so that's good that we were getting the word out. So thank you, Luz and Anthony and Jeff, for being there, and Gail and Tina Landis hosted it at their home, for free and provided food. So it was a good event, and I'm looking forward to doing more. In the legislative side, so the one that there's not that many bills left that are related to us that are going through the process, whether they didn't, pass or they were shelved till next year. But one that's related to something we've been talking a lot about at the board level is AB 705, which is matriculation assessment. So that, I'll just read the little blurb. The bill would require California community colleges to use high school performance data when determining a student's readiness for college level English and math. It also prohibits community colleges from requiring students to enroll in remedial coursework unless research proves that the students are highly unlikely to succeed in college level coursework. So I think that's a very interesting bill that we should keep an eye on. It's in the Senate right now. There's a couple other ones, one by our own state senator, Hannah Beth Jackson. It's a sex equity bill that would require us to implement policies and procedures on sexual harassment, which I think we have some, but I think it's gonna require more specific language. And the baccalaureate degree program, the pilot, it's moving forward, so that's in the Appropriations Committee in the Assembly, so those are the ones I thought were, the most relevant to what we're doing right now. Another one is, I don't know what we do with the Promise program in relation to this, but it's an enrollment fee waiver, so it allows colleges to waive the enrollment fee for the first year. So I'm not sure if the Promise program covers that here already, but.
It does.
Oh, it does, okay, so that one, I don't know if this will just help offset money that we already spent for the Promise program by providing state funding for it. So they're gonna have $30 million a year to assist colleges in waiving that fee. And then, personally, I'm going to the Democratic Party Platform Committee tomorrow, which I'm a member of, and I'm gonna make sure that community colleges are strongly supported on there.
Any other topics?
No, that's it.
Okay. Our K-12 representative.
Yes, so on Tuesday, I went to the Santa Barbara Unified Board meeting to welcome them, the new board members. When we opened up this, assignment, this job, it was in January, and so City College gets busy, Unified gets district, like schools get going. But I think now the focus, really my message to them was, it's time to connect. It's our two presidents have had their year. We love them and we want them to stay, and we want to connect because we have so many strong partnerships that are in place, especially with the Promise, with the dual enrollment. I must say now my daughter's in high school, so now I have officially gone online. We're doing the process, and I've been impressed at how informed our counselors at the high school are, how they are providing information for our local students, and sort of like that nice handoff, and how pleasant the faculty was on Tuesday night. I mean, they're welcoming 14-year-olds onto this campus, and there was a room full of high school freshmen from DP, Santa Barbara High, and so as a parent, I know that is wonderful to know that your 14-year-old is taken care of at a community college, and parents are proud to send their kids here, so I think that's amazing, so good job, you guys. I connected Luz with Casey Kilgore, and so thinking of just sort of like those listening tours for Dr. Beebe, and this is just a great opportunity for him to get in that East Side community, because there are a lot of families, a lot of elementary schools, a lot of high schools. Just by default, I think District 3 just cuts through Santa Barbara High, junior high, and like 5 elementary schools, and so I think it's just a good opportunity for that. So yeah, so let's look forward to, I guess it's really now Dr. Beebe and you guys, hopefully Angie, we can get a joint board meeting going sometime soon.
Excellent.
SBCC Foundation, anything happening there?
Save the date. SBCC's gala, April 28th. So mark your calendars, April 28th, 2018. And
Good
so,
notice.
yes. We will get all the details, I am sure. It's a great turnout. I'm sure we'll get more of the projections with the numbers, but as of Jeff's last update, there was like over 1,500 Promise students enrolled, which is huge. We can't keep, I guess it's worth noting, sbccpromise.org. So if you have any neighbors, anybody's asking you, sbccpromise.org. Go there. It's a wealth of information for everybody. And they also have a hotline, 730-4416. I mean, really, when you look at, they're covering all ends of this. I was at the bookstore Tuesday night getting books with Jocelyn, and there were our Promise students in the front and just so eager, and it was just neat to hear them and their stories and grabbing, stacks and getting to the counter and them being able to check out. So I think just for me standing there, I thought, oh my gosh, this is like huge, because I remember as an English major having to sell my books, and I loved my literature books. I mean, and the Chaucer, Shakespeare, Dante, Milton, all those big anthologies were really expensive, and I had to sell them back because I had to buy more. And so it's just neat to see that. So thank you to the community for supporting that, and send everyone to that website. Keep them coming.
Any other topics you wanted to touch on? Okay.
No, the meetings are going to kick off here pretty soon, so I'm sure we'll have more updates in September.
Mitigation Ad Hoc Committee, we are meeting August 31st with Jennifer McGovern of the Santa Barbara County Housing Trust. That's an organization that helps folks who are new to Santa Barbara trying to buy a house, and we thought that that would be something of interest. We have, as Dr. Beebe just ran through, some of our new faculty are not already from Santa Barbara and probably have sticker shock. And, we have, of course, people in classified and other areas as well. So we wanted to find out about that program. Then I would expect another meeting, and we'll be back to you guys. Community partnership, Peter, and any other topics as well, of course.
We have taken the summer off, so I think the next step is to figure out whether there are specific examples of partnerships that we should explore, and perhaps that's a group effort before we take our next step. In terms of my own activity, I paid a visit to the Carpinteria Unified School Board to present to them what they already knew and to get their feedback. What they already knew is that we have a college promise program, and they went out of their way to be both hospitable and complimentary to City College. They think we come very, very close to walking on water. And I couldn't help but agree that that was the case, and that I was encouraging them to increase the number of students who come from the Carpinteria High School area to take advantage of, and I emphasize that this is not a free program. It's my standard mantra. It's not free. It's an investment. It's an investment in our future. And that's why we did it, that's why we continue to do it, and that's why personally I support it. I also had a session with the newly appointed superintendent of schools for Carpinteria, and it was good to get acquainted with her. I've also taken a hand in welcoming Kyle Rasmussen, who is our new Veterans Center director, by introducing him to various people in the community who are interested and active in the veterans community. And that has been a positive thing to do. Yesterday we went to the Veterans Memorial Building, and I introduced him to people who run that place, and there's an agreement pending, it's informal at this point, where our veterans, if they have a need for a place to go hide, they'll have a place to go hide and sit and talk and be together. On a personal note, one of my favorite things to do. Want a glass of water? Yeah. Thanks. That's all right. No problem. I frequent the Habitat for Humanity facility out in Goleta. Does anybody know about that? Yes. Yeah, you do that too. Well, when I go there, there's one person who comes over to me and tells me what Santa Barbara City College students have done recently to volunteer. And from her perspective, our student volunteers are among the most dependable, most helpful, and that just makes me feel very good. And finally, I wanted to comment on Priscilla's reading. I really thought that you captured what we needed to hear. And I'd really like for us to have that embedded in the minutes, if that's possible to do, because I'd like to read it again. And the minutes is a good place where the rest of the world can read what we believe is important.
We'll be sure to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Craig?
Yeah, just briefly, in the past, well, Fiesta, before, during, and after, and,
Craig, can you,
Mike?
I forgot to turn my mic on. I'm sorry about the coughing a minute ago. I've been kind of busy attending a lot of events and nonprofits that I'm active in since before, during, and after Fiesta. And I've been quite surprised because I've been talking about the Promise program to people constantly for like a year now. And this recently, I've had them come up to me at these events, and I don't even know, people I don't even recognize, somehow recognize me. They must be looking at our website or something, and tell me, you know, that the Promise program is just wonderful, like they just found out about it. And this is really encouraging. I'm on the committee that took the summer off, kind of, to reach out to the community. So I've been putting out feelers to get invitations and opportunities and to get people together to help. And I made a short list of groups that we could interact with. And so far, I met the head guy of the Boy Scouts recently, that here in town, is fairly new to our community. And just recently, because I kept after the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to give me the microphone at the meetings, which I've been attending regularly for years now, and they don't much let people speak at their meetings. So they're mixers. And I got an invitation, I get to go to a SCORE thing. SCORE is something like the Society of Retired Executives that help, retired businessmen that help new businesses out, new entrepreneurs. So I at least get a couple of minutes at a SCORE meeting coming up, and it's starting to help a little bit, just looking at the service clubs and different organizations that need to know about the Promise program, and they need to know more about what we do. So we'll have some more meetings now, and we'll get back on, we'll get things rolling again. So I'm really pleased that starting to get some results. It takes a while after you ask, but if you never ask, it never seems to happen. So thank you.
Well, good. Sounds like that committee has got some work coming up, and I know Dr. Beebe and Luz will be a part of that. So we're all on the same page. Marianne, and then David. We're all got stuff to talk about.
Is that on?
No.
I just, thank you. Yeah, it felt sort of anon. Wanted to remind you that this college has a great many remarkable things that happen that we have to look for, and we get so busy sometimes we forget. The art shows here are among the best in California and are noted by artists all over. The music programs are splendid. Now, of course, I admit that I have a personal interest in that, but I would like them anyway if I didn't have. So I'd encourage you to go to some of those. And I have never seen better dramatic presentations by colleges, K-12, or anywhere else than I've seen here. So just a reminder that that's part of trusteeing, I think.
Well, thank you. David?
I just wanted to quickly report back on the Student Trustee Conference. that I went to. It was an incredible event. There were about 50 to 60 student trustees there. And it was really cool because we like kind of stood in a circle at one point and, you know, giving our goodbyes. And it's interesting because it was 60, but it was also 2 million in a sense. We were there to represent and then do good for the students that elected us. And just one of the things that, probably the most important thing that I took away from it was President Cooper, which I've told Dr. Beebe many times, his comments on equity, student equity, and the external pressures which may not allow for that completion rate or transfer rate or whatever it may be to go up. And it really hit me because, I mean, I used to be one of those students who was struggling from external pressures, but there are many students that are struggling even more under that. And so relieving that pressure, I found would probably be the greatest way to increase that percentage. And that's something that I'll be focusing on for this year. So, yeah.
Thank you, David. Marty, anything you wanted to add? Okay. Veronica.
I forgot to mention, well, this Saturday, we're hosting Santa Barbara High School football and La Playa Stadium. So I just think that that's, I mean, the epitome of this is the community's college, and it is your bond money comes here, your facilities are being used by high school, vice versa, and so our community is going to be hosting this football team here on Saturday, so I think that's great. So thank you guys for making that happen, because I know, well, the band's excited to play on our field, and I just think it's, I mean, it's fancy, it's cool, so.
Veronica, I'm a great football fan, kind of, and I appreciate you're announcing that, because I wasn't aware.
Go support.
And, you know,
Okay.
I've been to too many games at the stadium, and there's not that many people there. And I mean, if you don't like football, you could just look at the beach and the ocean, and it's gorgeous. So.
Okay, so moving along, because we do have quite a number of things. Development of the consent agenda. I know there are 2 items that folks want to pull. The entire consent agenda would come from 7.1 through 9.4. So, Peter, you wanted to pull?
Yes, I would like to have a look. Hold on a minute. My cursor is not cooperating. There it is. I just need to know a little more about item 8.1, stipends for faculty, and how that process works.
Okay, and Mary Ann?
Yes, I'd like to have 7.4 voted on separately, and when that vote is taken, I will abstain.
Because?
Because I have a personal family member in the list.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Okay, so may I have a motion for approval of items 7.1 through 9.4, excluding 7.4 and 8.1? Jonathan moves. Second. Peter? Anybody have any comments?
A quick question on 8.2. Not sufficient to pull it out of the agenda, but it looks as if a whole slew of administration of justice courses have been removed. And I wondered if that portended a major shift in the department, or whether there's something simple going on, like these courses just have been merged with other courses.
Dr. Jarrell is here. He can tell you all about that.
We just did this, like, a few months ago, we just deleted a bunch of classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been, from that area, we've been refining the curriculum in there to reflect the degrees and certificates that we currently offer. These particular ones that are being deleted were probably the ones that were offered for post-training that we're not doing anymore, so they're just being deleted off the books because they haven't been taught in, you know, several years, and we don't want to be held accountable for keeping up the outcomes assessment and things on them. Okay. So no major curricular changes at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Keeping things organized.
We are trying.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 7.4, may I have a motion to approve item 7.4, which is our short-term and student employees, temporary. Craig moves.
I move.
Peter second. Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I abstain.
Okay. And 8.1, may I have a motion to approve stipends, and then we'll answer Peter's question.
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
Second, Veronica. Your question.
My
Peter.
question is twofold. One, is there a whole lot of stipends that fall into the $100 to $200 range? And I'm not sure we really need to see that. That's just a comment. There are also a number of stipends that are substantially more than that prompt questions. And maybe a future presentation of this could include just a word or a short sentence about why this is here. But what I'm really interested in is knowing that there is a process, that each line item on these 4 pages has been carefully looked at, and that there are no alternatives but to spend these dollars, which is what we're trying to husband and save on. As at last blush, we still have a deficit. Yes, I take that as a yes. Okay, so that's my question. Is there a way that we can look at this in a different way and know that this is absolutely essential, and that it's been examined carefully by others?
Well, let me take the first question, and then I'll have Paul talk about the process for stipends. The first part of this, I appreciate your comment, Dr. Haslam, in terms of showing all of the detail, the $100 stipends and such. You'll make note that on item 9.2, ratification of purchase orders, we've condensed that report to show only those purchase orders over $10,000, which really gets rid of things like, subscriptions that have been renewed and some of those kind of things that you guys probably don't really need to worry about. And what I think that we can do with the stipends in some ways would be the same kind of presentation for you, so that you're not having to wade through the $100 stipends for this or that.
Well, the fact is we don't.
Yeah, because it's so
And so what
voluminous.
I'm thinking of is there's work involved in creating this, and maybe there's work to be saved for someone in not creating this in precisely this way.
Thank you for that, and we appreciate you thinking about that part of it. So we'll come back next time with a different kind of a format for you to take a look at. In terms of the process, I'll let Paul talk about that. I know he's been looking into that for us.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Beebe, and thank you, Peter. Yeah, we would like to look at a process that would certainly make this a more practical practice for you. Most of the ones that you see, certainly the ones that are less than $500 or so, usually relate to the attendance of an adjunct faculty member, either in credit or non-credit, to a meeting or professional development or a workshop. We have a contractual rate that's linked to a salary schedule that they're paid at per hour, and that's what those values typically reflect, an hour at a meeting or 3 hours at a professional development activity, and that's what those smaller ones are. The larger ones are usually for either performing work on projects for grants, in which case it would indicate that it is a grant-funded stipend that usually occur either over the entire semester, or sometimes we list it for the entire year. And there will be milestones that will be indicated in the request form that payment will be made upon achieving certain milestones. Others that you see that are large amounts, or not large amounts that are general funded, typically are ones that are either found in contract or AP that are payments to individuals for particular leadership duties, coaching, coordinating activities, or department chair stipends. So you might see those, and those are spelled out in contract and paid under a separate model. The process is that we get a request form. We verify that the person has the capacity to be able to do the work given their other assignments. And then we sign off on that. A dean signs off on it, and I sign off on it, and then they appear before you here.
Okay. So, I mean, what caught my eye were 4 instances of coordinate, manage athletic events, games, concession stands, gates, and each of them was identical in cost, $5,000.
Yeah, you know, that's just because this is we can work on the form and the way we present them, I think, them to make this a little bit more clear as to what the intent is. For all of those, it's an amount not to exceed $5,000 per person. For these individual ones, we spent somewhere between $10,000 and $11,000 a year in total. We just don't want any single person to be able to receive any more than that amount. So we're mandated to have representation by an administrator at all home events. So we have to have a person there. We pay them $100 per event, and we had 125 of those last year, so that's a little over $12,000 if the athletic director or the AD can't do them. The way you're seeing it is that we just don't want any one person to get all of them. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So all 13,000. So it appears like we potentially could spend 40,000, but each one of these actually would be paid probably less than, you know, $1,000, or certainly less than, you know, 1,500 or something like that.
I see.
Yeah.
It says it's a rate as opposed to a specific stipend.
Yeah, all of these that you see in stipends before you come as requests not to exceed.
Yeah.
And then they're paid based upon a particular payment, a memo, or a milestone achieved. Yeah, I'm happy to work to try to make this more clear, certainly.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. I mean, in a way, this is micromanagement, and I admit it, but you brought this to us. We need to approve it by voting yes. I'm saying I understand it, and that's why I raised the issue.
Yeah. I think that if we had a mechanism whereby you didn't have to see potentially 100 of them less than, you know, $300, and we could draw your attention more, we could provide you with more detail in a more efficient manner, for sure.
And just one last comment on this. If you go through this, one of the things that Santa Barbara City College is really a standout college about has to do with professional development. And there's lots of professional development activities that are kind of baked into this whole process here. And we know that's obviously very, very important for us to stay cutting edge and so on and so forth. But I do think that we can do a better job in terms of the description of the assignment.
Agreed.
And so we'll work on that.
Okay. Well, thank you. I would appreciate it.
Yeah, you're quite welcome.
Greg, did you?
Yeah, just real quick, because I was looking at this before, and I thought, man, I've thought about this for constantly. It's like every quarter we get all these things, and I look at it, and I'm going, why am I looking at all this? Because what would happen if everybody just voted no? You know, and why don't we just do that and see what happens? You know, because that's the way I think sometimes, because I don't.
It's been nice knowing you, Craig.
Yeah, I know. Well, I got elected, you can't fire me, but you cannot vote for me again.
Yeah, but you'd be lynched, so be careful.
Be careful? Okay. Good. I like the idea of categorizing these by, like, you mentioned the categories already, by the ones that are funded already, you know, by grants, or if you categorize them like that, it would be easier for us to know what's going on. You know, we ratify purchase orders all the time, and I keep wondering, what if we just said no? Because there's no, you know, it's not that we need to see that all the time, but it comes before me, and I used to think, why am I doing this all the time? But at least we know that it's happening, and if we want to delve into it deeper, we can do so. We have access to the president, we can find out. So categorizing things for us helps us. I mean, we could look at it ourselves and try to categorize it for ourselves, but I like the idea of categorization just to make it clean and simple, and I appreciate your further explanation of how you process.
Certainly.
Because I had other questions and you answered those. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, now we go back to voting on 8.1. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I guess we'll all live to see tomorrow. We've been warned.
You have to be a little bit of a rebel now and then. Why else are we here?
Okay, next item, 10.1, resolution number 3, augmentation of revenue. Unfortunately, that's in parens, so it's actually negative, but only about 50,000. It's a resolution, so may I have a motion to approve? Jonathan, second. Peter, Angie.
Okay, Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Bloom? Aye. Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Haslam?
Aye.
Trustee Kugler?
Aye.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Student Trustee Pambetti?
Aye.
Okay. 10.2, resolution number 4, budget transfer between major objects. Motion to approve. Craig? Peter, you want a second? Peter, second. Angie?
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Bloom? Aye. Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Haslam?
Aye.
Trustee Kugler?
Aye.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Student Trustee Pambetti?
Aye.
And that takes us to Lindsay and the budget.
Good evening, Dr. Beebe and Board of Trustees and President Croninger. I'm here again. I feel like I do this all the time. So tonight we have quite a lot to cover. So go ahead and tell me to speed up, slow down, whatever you want to do, because I have 2 different presentations. The final budget for 17-18, I want to go through that first so we can talk about that final budget. This is our first public hearing for the 17-18 final budget. We will see it again at that first board meeting in September, where we'll be recommending that the Board of Trustees adopt the final budget. We have to do it at the first board meeting because it's required that it's adopted by September 15th. Okay, that's why it doesn't go at the second September board meeting. And then I also have prepared an updated version of our 5-year fiscal projections, because right now we're very focused on those projections and where we're headed. So I have 2 presentations to go through. I'm going to try to go through the budget presentation a little more quickly. I think we're all interested in the 5-year projections, but it's such a long slide deck. Quickly is not quick. So we'll get started. Now, you've already seen the tentative budget back in June and approved that. There were not a lot of changes between the tentative and the final. So even though this is a large slide deck with a lot of information, a lot of it is the same information that was in the tentative budget, okay? So it's not quite as overwhelming as it looks. I have the clicker here. Okay, so here we go. So on the revenue assumptions, the first part, so we're going to start talking about the unrestricted general fund, and almost everything here was here on the tentative budget. The only change is this last line item between the tentative and the final budget. We were informed that we are receiving $830,000 for deferred maintenance and instructional equipment block grant funding. So that's good news. Yeah, I was very excited to hear that from the facility standpoint, because we have many projects on the list of things that we'd like to accomplish. And also in the program review area, we have a lot of equipment that was requested that we'll be able to use this funding for. So that's good news for us here. Additionally, we've just decided in CPC and worked with all of our faculty and department chairs on which program review requests are really critical, and figuring out how to split that $830,000 between deferred maintenance and instructional equipment. So we just talked about it in CPC 2 days ago, and we're landing on $240,000 going to the instructional equipment for the program review items, and $590,000 going to deferred maintenance. Okay? Any questions about the revenues?
Are those broad numbers, or do you have specific deferred maintenance projects
We
in
do.
mind?
We
Okay.
do. We have about 5 specific projects in mind. Yeah. Okay, so the FTS figures that we're showing for our 17-18 budget, the only change here is we had updated figures for P2 as of July 14th. So we updated those numbers. Those are the numbers that are used to build our revenue assumptions on apportionment. So it was good to get those updated numbers, and we just have an update on that change percentage there. And then the next slide goes into the future. The 17-18 budget, here's the FTS in numbers based on the percentages that we're projecting for 17-18. We kept the percentages exactly the same. The only changes are these numbers now based on the new P2 figures from 16-17. So these are a little bit higher than they were in the tentative budget. So that's good news for us. Yeah, we keep going here. There's no changes to this slide here. This is just to show our ratio here of FTS between resident, non-credit, out-of-state, and international. Okay, on the expense side. And you know what, I'm gonna back up a second because I realized something I missed saying in my haste here. Talking about the enrollment, well, it's not even up here and it should be, I apologize. So this increase in the enrollment has, on the P2, has resulted in an increase in our revenues as well. That's the main change to our presentation here. I'm gonna get to it after the expenses, sorry.
Lindsay, sorry to interrupt you. I don't know why my brain, P2?
Oh, sorry. That's just a term with the FTES. We report at different time periods.
So reporting period 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I was wondering the same.
Yeah, a 320 FTS report, getting into too technical of terms.
Oh,
Thanks for stopping me. Okay. There's no changes on the expense side to our assumptions at all. So that's the same as tentative. Okay, back to the revenues again. So I was just talking about how our FTS did go up a little bit from the tentative budget in 16-17, and so that's resulting in a little bit higher than revenues than we were expecting. So that's good news. That helps with our deficit that we were projecting at 3.6 million. It's down to 3.4 million with our final budget. So the 400,000 is related to the apportionment for the FTS, and the 100,000 is really just an accounting change in how we budget for the revenue that we receive from the foundation. We'll still receive the same dollars, and the board will see that when you get your budget changes that you have to approve. When we get money in from the foundation, there's always a specific purpose for it. So we increase the revenue and the expense at the same time, and it's a wash. And removing it from our budget as a figure makes the accounting more accurate throughout the year. So, okay. And on the expense side, I mentioned there were no changes to the actual assumptions. We didn't change anything that we're expecting to receive. But we did do a lot of work between June and now in Banner with our tool of getting all the salaries really fine-tuned, knowing who we'd hire, who we're not going to hire, different positions, and getting our tool all up to date. You may recall last year it was the first year we were implementing using our Banner software for the salary budgeting. And last year at this point we had 100 changes listed here, unfortunately, even though it was late in the process because we started the tool late in the process. So this is our second year using that. It's much more accurate, which is wonderful. And we just had these couple little things that we missed at the very beginning of the process, so we added those in. Okay, I forgot my water, and I'm always parched when I start talking. Here we go. Oh, thank you. What a gal. All right, coming to the bottom line here, when we look at the unrestricted general fund, we sort of have all these slides broken out because putting it all on one slide is just far too many numbers. But what I want to point out here is up above here, picture there's the revenues, there's the expenses, then there's our transfers, and here's our deficit for 16-17. The good news on that is that that was 2.3 million in the adopted budget. So 16-17 has come in better than we expected. So I have some good news to share tonight. And that helps with our reserve, as you're familiar. That means we have more money left in our reserve at the end of 16-17 than we were expecting, which rolls out into our projections and helps our 5-year projections look a little better because we have more reserves to sustain for the next few years. So there's some news on 16-17. And then on the final budget, imagine we've got revenues, expenses, our transfers, and we're landing at a deficit of $3.2 million for 17-18 for our final budget. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on the transfers on this next slide. So one other change that we did need to build into the final budget for 17-18 on the transfers is related to the Children's Center. Unfortunately, in 17-18, we're needing to build in a transfer of $250,000 instead of $200,000 to the Children's Center, because 16-17 they had a little bit of a rough year. It went not quite as planned. They had some folks out on leaves of absence, and they had to get other staff in to serve the children, so their costs were a little higher than they were expecting. So we're expecting 17-18 to be the same for them. We just have to pay for what didn't get covered in 16-17. Otherwise, our transfers are just the same, with only that $615,000 out to the construction fund for projects, for emergency type projects. Good. Okay. Now here's where I'm really kind of going to blow through if no one has any specific questions here. So the construction fund, we have the money coming in for the deferred maintenance, and this, I apologize, this just changed 2 days ago. This should be $590,000. So that's what we talked about in CPC just recently. A little bit more is going over to the equipment fund for instructional equipment than I knew of a week ago. So we have $590 coming in here for deferred maintenance and $615 coming in from the general fund to cover our unexpected maintenance. Here's all the expenditures related to the construction fund that are planned for 17-18, and then the ending fund balance is down below. Decided to do a little bit of a different format just to show all the specific expenses this time. Any questions on those projects or expenses? No? Okay, good. The equipment fund, same type of story. We have the $240 coming in from the instructional equipment block grant, and then the same amount going out for program review requests that are specific to instructional equipment. And then we have some of our usual expenditures that are in the equipment fund. $750,000 for the IT refresh. That is a lower number than normal. We're really cutting back and tightening up and trying not to refresh computers as often to save money. That's normally well over $1 million. And this $465,000 are standard operational budgets that have been in this equipment fund for quite a while that are needed to keep all of our different systems in place. And then we do have some program review carryover items from prior years that folks did come back and ask for that exception, even though we've decided to stop carrying over program review items for many years because it was making it very difficult to know what to build into the budget. Those were the specific requests where people came and said, no, I'm in the middle of that project, I still need the funds, please provide it to me. So that leaves us with 1.8 in the equipment fund for the end of 17-18.
Kenzie?
Mm-hmm.
Question, the $750,000 in IT refresh, is that a long-term sustainable or a temporary drop?
We'll look at that in the projections. You mean the dollar amount of doing the 750?
Dollar amount. In other words, you were pointing out that it's
Yeah.
lower than what we have in the past. Are we looking at a new normal?
Yeah, that's what we've built into the projections, yes, to do 750. Yeah, and it means we're more creative with how we refresh computers. Instead of buying a brand new computer when it's up for refresh, we repair it, or we do things of that nature. So we'll still have the equipment we need for our staff and faculty, but it won't be brand new in some cases, or moving to thin clients and other types of equipment. Okay. So here's our reserve details here. So like we talked about already, 16-17 has ended. It's not over all the way yet. We haven't closed the books, but it's looking to be better. And at the end of 16-17, we still have the $7.2 million that's undesignated in our reserves, meaning it's above the board policy minimum of the $20 million. And then 17-18, that'll be dropping down to about $3.6 million. And we'll look at this more when we get into the projections and our favorite slide here, our ending fund balance slide. We all have known and love and stare at, and we'll look at it some more in the projections. I feel like this is the slide. I always call it the slide. So after this, I have all of the specific kind of auxiliary funds that we have, and I just wanted to highlight the couple that do have changes. So the restricted funds, the restricted general fund, This fund, because of the way we receive the information from the various entities telling us what the budgets are going to be for next year, there's a lot of changes between tentative and now. We don't get that information until this time period. So this has been updated quite a bit, and it's just more accurate as we go. Those categoricals are kind of always a moving target. But the money we get in is the money we're supposed to spend. If we don't spend it, it goes back. So it's not very impactful when these change, because what comes in goes out and vice versa. That's why you see so many of those changes that you are approving regularly with the budget changes on categoricals. So that one has a change. Nothing new here. Food service did have a change. We've been working really hard to figure out where our budget is going to be with food service, and we are coming in with a small loss right now for 17-18. Just trying to figure out how our declining in enrollment is impacting that, and also some changes we're making between School of Culinary Arts and food service that added a little bit more cost here on the expense side. But we'll be continuing to work on that. Those venues are very important to us to break even and be providing some extra funding back to the students. So we're not settled with that. We'll keep working on it. And nothing new on any of these. Nothing new here either. I already talked about that 250. You'll see the loss they had last year, and that's why we need to bring 250 over on Children's Center. And then the only other one that had changes, and it's a very similar story to what I just shared about food service, is the campus store. The campus store, 16-17, went about as expected with that remodel. We had to be in a small location. We weren't expecting sales to be very good in 16-17, and we were actually pretty relieved. It's looking like we did break even. We haven't closed the books yet, but that's a relief, because we were thinking it could have been worse in that small area. We wouldn't know how sales would be impacted, and the declining enrollment as well. So 17-18, this is our best good estimate at this time, but we're expecting this to change as well. Just in the last 2 weeks, our director of auxiliary services has shared with me that the Promise program, and having 2 years worth of Promise students there, they're selling out of things like crazy, which is great. That's great news. That helps our campus store. So we'll be working on this and adjusting this a few times throughout the year to try and see how we can maximize our profit here and get that back to the students.
How's the book rental program doing, profit loss wise?
That's a good question. I've asked them to get me all that information to pass along to you as soon as possible. So I didn't forget about it. We're going to get it to you as soon as we can put all those numbers together. Yeah. It's still alive and well. Yeah. So I think we made it through the first one. Yeah, any more questions about the budget before we move into the projections? Budget for 17-18.
I'm trying to think about, cutting a budget has to be one of the most difficult things that you can possibly do, because everyone is very sensitive to their particular line item, and I get that. But I still see that we have a serious problem. And how to attack that in a gentle to not so gentle way, so as to reduce the dependency on reserves is where I'm going. And so when I see expenditures, for instance, and not to focus on it, but just as an instance, the IT refresh program is costing us, it's reduced from $1 million to $750,000. But if we skipped a year, is that the kind of thinking that would get us a little closer to where we need to be?
Well, that gets us back to President Croninger's question of, is that sustainable? So
Right.
we could do that for a year, but then we would need to do it the next year. So it's more about getting our structural deficit in line with our revenues and our expenditures, and knowing we are going to need to buy new computers. Unfortunately, they break, they don't last forever. So yeah, that would help in a year where we maybe need to do that. But
Well, the other thing is that we brought that down from over, what was it?
yeah, 1.2.
1.2 million, by deferring some things that, typically we take care of. But this is the minimum investment that we have in the infrastructure of the college. And it ends up costing us more many times by, deferring maintenance or deferring kind of these refresh and things on the computers and in terms of workload or work productivity. So we're doing essentially what you're talking about in terms of deferring as much as we possibly can without causing disruption of the operations of the college itself.
When I think about it, it's that question of coming to a level which gives us a sustainable, balanced budget, that we can't do a one-time savings and expect that to help us. But I know, Anthony, one of the things you happened to mention to me was that in our IT refresh, I think we had a policy at one point of when the warranty ran out in 3 years on a computer, we'd refresh it. Well, maybe the computer is still fine, even though the warranty isn't. And so that sort of thinking to me can be sustainable.
Well, the other thing along those lines, I mean, this gets pretty into the weeds, but what we'll do too is we'll replace a hard drive with a digital hard drive.
Virtual desktop.
Yeah, virtual desktop and do some things with Chromebooks and some other things. And Dr. Bishop has really been working really hard on kind of transitioning those kinds of things that save us money in the long run, make it so that we have fewer working parts in the computer when they're solid state. I guess it's solid state hard drives that we're putting in instead of the old-fashioned ones that have movable parts. So those kind of things help us in the long run get extra mileage out of our computers.
I don't want us to just focus on computers. What I'm
Right, right.
thinking, I mean, I really buy Marcia's concern about a sustainable reduction. And that's the kind of thinking that I'm hoping that we're really looking at very carefully in terms of the categories of activities that we engage in, so that at the end of the day, we shrink what has to be removed from the reserves in order to make payroll. So,
Because the reserves shrink down to zero eventually.
because our revenues are shrinking.
Lindsay, could you just remind me, what's covered under the satellite fund?
That's a good one. That's a new fund that was a spin-off from, we had the campus store, food service, and we had coffee venues. And right now, it's just coffee venues. And the concept was that there may be other venues, we may create new things, and they would all end up in satellite. And it's related to food or bookstore type things. We're probably gonna merge it right back into food service, because it's a lot of work to keep one fund for a small amount of ins and outs. So you're probably not gonna see it next year. I will say that up front. It's gonna go back into food service, because it's coffee and it's staying coffee, and we're not expanding right now any of our additional venues or services. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go on to the projections. Wait until it's up there. All right. So this will be the fourth time we've looked at projections in the last, I think, only 9 months, less than a year. And the last time we looked at them was in June with the tentative budget. And you may recall we're trying to keep all of the assumptions and all of the items in the projections to a minimum so we can all understand them. So there are not a list of 100 things that we've built into these projections that make it too hard for us to understand what the numbers mean and where they're coming from. The assumptions that we have built into these projections are not terribly different than last June. So I'm going to kind of do a similar format of what I just did with the final budget, talking about the tentative versus the final. I'll explain the differences between our last presentation on the projections that was done in June and now. So on the revenue side, basically just keep in mind these projections are the 17-18 final budget numbers. Those are very detailed. Our budget is done line by line, account by account. So I'm taking in the 17-18 final budget and then using those numbers as the base and projecting out 5 years beyond that. So all these assumptions are anything built on top of the 17-18 budget. Okay? So these first few were already in here last time around. We're projecting a small increase on apportionment of $500,000 a year, because that's kind of the trend, that we usually do get some base increase allocation each year. This is actually a part of 17-18, this EPA revenue reduction. That's happening, that's in the budget, that's not new. Here's the first one that is new on the revenue side. Unfortunately, it's going in the wrong direction for us. This is a reduction of $600,000 for our center status. So the way this apportionment works is for Wake Center and Schott Center, we receive a certain dollar amount of funding just based on the number of FTS students that are there. We get something similar for the main campus as well, just our base funding based on the number of students we have. So as the students have declined at those two locations, we've fallen down tiers. There's tiers for how much funding we receive. And we've fallen down one tier at each location. So that's about $300,000 for each location that we've dropped down that will impact us in 17-18. That's about, I usually get asked this question, it's about 250 FTS for that $300,000. That's the number we're talking about. And we're right on the line. We're right above the next tier. So to get back into the next tier, we need to grow another 250 again. So we're right there. So what we have built into the projections is that we'll restore 300,000 of it at one center in 1920 and another 300,000 at the other center in 2021. We're not sure which center yet, but we're doing a lot of work. Dr. Jarrell and Dr. Moreno are doing a lot of work figuring out the best approach of which classes to put where, so that we can grow at one center and get back up one of the tiers to restore some of that funding. Any questions about that? That can be confusing. Yeah.
So just to clarify, so because of the drop in enrollment, we've lost money?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And how many, like FTES, how many students have?
About 250 at each one, because we've fallen below.
250 students?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, FTES.
Yeah, FTS, not students.
Okay.
Yeah, the full-time equivalent student.
Okay, that's 15 units, right?
Yeah, the way the calculation works is they calculate, doesn't matter how many bodies it is, but if 5 students are part-time and they add up to one full-time student, then that becomes one FTES.
And for Wake and Schott, that's particularly true, I think, because you have more part-time students there.
Since we are, as Lindsay points out, we're just above the line for the tier, that means that we have a full 250 essentially to get back up to the next level. And so that's the challenge. And of course, fortunately, we're moving forward with the School of Extended Learning, and that'll help bring those numbers up. That's the plan.
Yep, and that's exactly what I wanted to bring up next, because the next change here is this last bullet on the Extended Learning Reserve. And I want to talk a little bit first about the School of Extended Learning, and Dr. Beebe, you could add to it if you like, that what the focus is to grow, and I kind of want to flip to the next slide here on FTS. Right here, if we look at the non-credit, so our projections are to increase primarily our non-credit, and this ties back to our center status. So the non-credit FTS would be at those 2 centers, and that's where our focus is over our projections here, and these haven't changed, these are the same as June, in those areas. So you can see the number of FTES down here. They look like really large increases, 10%, 20%, but you need to look at the number as well of actual FTS. The numbers are so small that those percentages look kind of unusually large. But within these projections and our assumptions is that the School of Extended Learning, we're working on transitioning those fee-based classes over into non-credit classes. And that's a part of our whole plan here with increasing our revenues related to that program. I'm going to go back a slide to explain this piece right here. So we have a reserve that we've had for a while related to non-credit, and to help offset those implementation costs of transitioning some of the salaries over and some of the costs over from the fee-based over to the non-credit, not to the non-fee-based classes, we're going to take about 1/3 of that reserve in 17-18, and then another 1/3 in 18-19 and 19-20. That's our plan, to deplete those reserves that have been just kind of sitting. We haven't been using those hardly at all, and use that funds to help get us going in the direction we're trying to go with this conversion over and the implementation.
So the reserves then will help us develop courses, build courses, and build the School of Extended Learning at the same time. And so that's the appropriate use for those reserves. It's all about adult education, non-credit classes, and there's a lot of history behind that, but that's kind of what we're trying to do with that.
I was just going to say that of course is one-time money too, and we are not normally seeing that in our bar charts of reserves, correct?
Right.
So
Right.
this is like a separate
Yeah.
reserve for a separate function.
Yeah, and I can show you, because I think you'll recognize this if you don't mind me handing a piece of paper to you very quickly, Marcia. If I can find it. Oh, no. I said I could find it quick, and now I can't. Oh, I'm going to have to bring it to you another time. I'll show you after the meeting.
That's I think I understand that piece of it, but other questions?
Just a quick reminder for myself, enhanced is the state-funded.
Non-credit.
Non-enhanced
Right.
is the, okay.
Is also state-funded,
Oh,
at
it's
a lower rate.
at a lower rate.
Slightly lower rate.
Yeah, the enhanced apportionment is the same, enhanced non-credit is the same apportionment that we get for the credit classes.
Okay, so I'm going to move, I'll go back to this. Did anyone have any questions about the FTS? So this is what we've based our projections on related to revenues, these specific FTS. It's really important for us to detail out these specific types of FTS because we receive different funding amounts for them. So that's why we're doing it at this type of level and doing it based on FTS, not unduplicated headcount or something like that.
And enhanced, are those the ones that the governor has identified as like there's a certain ones that the governor or that the state has identified that we offer, like is that the ESL and like the enhanced? Are those the type of?
Well,
Because we have the Career Skills Institute, and so those fall under non-enhanced?
Those are, he's raising his hand here, he wants to talk about
I
this.
remember,
Yeah, go ahead, I mean, if you can get down here quick.
well, I remember in my notebook, I know I wrote this when we were at Carrillo at our thing, and I remember Dr. Gerald going over this.
Yeah.
And it's certain courses.
Certainly, yeah. So the enhanced is, you also see it referred to as CDCP. It stands for Career Development or College Prep. So courses that lead into a greater entryway or pathway into employment, or courses that lead into a pathway into a credit program or a college, or enhancing your success in a college program, those would be considered enhanced and funded at a higher rate. The courses have to be approved first, then they have to be linked together into at least minimally a 2-course certificate. And if those two things are in place, then they are blessed and we get the enhanced funding for those. Able to be modified to be able to be enhanced, but the majority of those will probably be non-enhanced for older adults and programs like that.
Thank you.
And Paul, the rate difference, I think, is roughly $500 per FTES?
No, it's about half. It's about $5,000 versus about $3,000.
Okay, well, those are more recent numbers than I'm remembering.
Okay, all right. This was a slide I put in here just as a reminder for folks who aren't familiar with why we're working on the projections, why we're seeing the decline we're seeing on the revenue side, because our funding comes from our FTS level primarily, and with it declining over the years, this is the issue we're trying to tackle. Our revenues come down as this line of resident FTS comes down as well. So just to give people a big picture of what we're facing, unfortunately. Okay. On the expenditure side, nothing here has changed on the projections since June. So these are the same expenditure assumptions we had built in before. Okay, so that's it, kind of easy. Okay, the transfer side, this is a new slide. There's some new information here because we did build in the specifics of the transfer from the extended learning reserve. So I've broken out here the transfers out and what those assumptions are. You can see the $615,000 is kind of our bare minimum, but it's sustainable as we've talked about before. And then same with the $750,000 for the IT refresh. You'll see the 750,000 is not in the 17-18 budget. That's intentional. We're using some of the balance that we have sitting in the equipment fund for that in 17-18. But we will need to fund it going forward. So you see those transfers out of the general fund at the top, and then transfers in. The new information here is this third one, the extended learning reserve. You see the money coming into the general fund from the extended learning reserve each of those years. So that bottom line ties to our transfers in and out for our projections. Okay? Questions about those? Yeah?
Just on the construction, who determines who will be doing the projects?
Who will be doing the projects?
Construction project itself? Or
Yeah.
There's a bid process that's quite a complicated process that we employ for that.
Okay.
So that, anybody that's a qualified bidder can apply for that, and then there's a whole set of criteria that has to be gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually a really good presentation on that archived online, and I believe it's like from 2016 from one of our board retreats. And it's like, has a lot of that. So you can Google and it'll show you. I can send it to you. Because these guys have been doing a lot of work for, but yeah, it's like a.
Yeah.
Very
Most
extensive.
of the $615,000 type projects are small. They're not large projects. This is earmarked for emergencies. The water line breaks, we need to repair it immediately. That happened a couple days ago. Things like that. Not large projects that we would be going out to bid for unless it was a major repair.
Why isn't there the 750,000 for IT in 17-18?
In this year?
Yeah.
Because this year, the equipment fund has a large enough remaining balance from prior years that we want to use some of that up. There's no reason to just let that money sit there and transfer more from the general fund.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Okay, getting to the heart of it here with the projections. So this is just a highlight of the changes here at the top, the things that are different here than in the prior projections in June. So we have the 16-17 actuals built in, which are a little bit better. As I discussed earlier, the deficit is not as high, so that gives us a higher ending fund balance throughout these years. In 17-18, we have a deficit of $3.2 million. That's $400,000 better than in June, giving us a little more money falling to the end here. But 18-19, 19-20, 2021, and 21-22 are a little bit worse because of the loss of the center status. Keep in mind that 18-19, the reason why that $7 million is so large is because our apportionment funding, there's always that 1-year lag. So we're projecting that we're going to continue to decline this year, which means we'll get even less money in revenues next year. And next year will be sort of the financial bottom that we'll hit in terms of our revenues. So that's why that number gets even worse instead of stabilizing this year. Okay?
And we're projecting a more stable FTES after that.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the
And
assumption.
I'm gonna flip on everybody, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's kind of important to see these slides in conjunction with those other slides. So this year, continued decline, then the growth on the non-credit and stabilization in credit resident, and then a little bit of growth here, a little more here, and then flat far out because we're just not sure how things will be that far out into the future, and flat in the out-of-state and international area as well. So then I'm going to flip on everybody. Hold on, sorry. I know this gives people a headache. But that gives you a better idea of understanding why these are changing the way they're changing. So declining and then steadily picking up. And of course, the expense side, things continue to increase because of the PERS and STIRS and things of that nature. And of course, the SERP savings are built in here as well. So that's still in there, just like before. Okay, all right, I'll go to, this is just a historical slide, which we saw a moment ago. I'll go to the projection version. So these numbers you see here in blue, these are the ending fund balances figures we just saw on the previous slide. So you saw it going down from our 24 million all the way down to the 8.8 million. So blue is the general fund, the unrestricted general fund reserve balance. Red is the equipment fund, and green is our construction fund. And you'll recall we transferred about $12 million over into the construction fund when we were going to do the campus center because we needed to pay for a portion of that. The state was only going to pay for 2/3 of it. So that money is still sitting in the construction fund. That's why that balance remains large. And here, our yellow line, that's our board reserve minimum fund balance per our board policy. And the bluish purple line is our state mandated minimum fund balance. That's 5% of our expenditures. So that's about $4.8 million. So in these new projections, we do stay above the 5% minimum. So that's a little bit relieving, but we do still have a structural deficit where it's going down every single year. So we need to get our budget in balance because, as we all know, these are one-time savings that we cannot continue to deplete every year going into the future. And we're working on that extensively in various meetings, venues, everywhere we go. That's what we're talking about. So anything you want to add, Dr. Beebe, or any questions?
Well, you know, we are also going to be having a retreat, a board retreat, and we're going to have the FCMAT report that's being developed as we speak, and it'll give us some solid recommendations in terms of directions to help with the structural deficit that we have there. But as Lindsay points out, I mean, we're working on aspects of closing this gap every day in terms of different strategies and just different things across the college in terms of being able to close the gap without destabilizing the institution. And I say that many times, as folks here know, in meetings. We believe that we can solve this problem without destabilizing the student services and instruction that we're providing and be able to continue doing the great work that we're doing at the college.
Marianne, I think you had a question.
No, I just wanted to make a comment. This is really beautifully presented, and it's very clear that you have been listening hard and that you know the questions that we are grappling with. And so thank you.
You're welcome. They're the same questions I have, so I know.
Yeah, I would echo that. You know, on Tuesday, just being a visitor at the Santa Barbara Unified Board meeting, and the board members were getting like a presentation. Mr. Matsuoka's trying to like explain, I don't know, some funds or something. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, like if they knew what Lindsay did for us. Like, but I didn't because I'm like, no, I'm the recruiter. But they were like sitting there and I thought, wow, like I felt like we were 10 years ahead from where they were in the questions their board was asking. And not that I know budgets from the K-12 system, but it's a K-14 funding. And so I'm like, I don't even understand what like is up there. And so, I mean, it's great. And so for me to see these things, well, you know, we're teaching institutions, so my schemas get retreat, you know, so I that remember this stuff. But I mean, this slide is the shocker because for me, you know, we talked about this and years back it was like, okay, when, and seeing this, it's very in your face, and 2018 is now. Yeah. And so, I mean, for us, I mean, we look at it, but we are just up here, and so really the work is down at the ground level with you guys. So I have full confidence in you, Dr. Beebe, that you guys can, you know, put this through with your team. So
we'll
thank you. Yeah, no.
Yeah, we'll get there. And you have to remember too, thanks to you all and feedback, and certainly great compliments to Lindsay and her staff, James and everybody, in terms of, we didn't have projections until this last year. I mean, so this is a new world for us, but look at the information that you get out of it. You really be able to see kind of the future. Is it 100% accurate? No, but we know the assumptions going into it, so we take that with a grain of salt, and we have something out there in terms of the future. So I think that's really a great tool for us to be able to use.
And I will be continuing to do these. We already know things that we're looking at and just trying to figure out, okay, is that something we feel ready to build in there? And we have a new version started already, I can tell you. So in the next few months, I'll be back with another update to keep everyone abreast of what we're doing and what our strategies are and how it looks in this format. And I'm very hopeful it will look better.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one last comment about the college itself. the College Planning Council, the various, academic senate, the other governance groups that we have at the college have really embraced the idea that we have to work together to be able to solve that problem. And, that isn't always the case. Sometimes, administrators feel like you're out there by yourself and that you can't get anybody to kind of come along with you and help you and work with you. And, at the CPC meeting we just had a couple of days ago, I really felt like, people are ready to grab a hold of this and figure out some solutions that we wish we didn't have to make, but we know that we have to make them. And so I'm real proud of the college in terms of the spirit of that.
Good.
Well, I echo the comments about the presentation. It's really excellent. And we know as you continue to address this gap, these numbers we hope will improve. But one of the things that I wanted to do here, and Anthony and I agreed that we should schedule the budget presentation here and the projections before we talked about the board goals. And I wanted to, if you can, leave this particular slide up as we turn to the board goals, because I think it's relevant to our fiscal goals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Just want to say really quick that it really feels like I'm on a different entity or board than 2 years ago. Like, we are dealing with the problem in a much different way than we never were before, so.
And you
You know,
mean that's
2
a
year-
good thing.
That's in a very good way. I mean,
2 years
bad
ago, we
projection-
couldn't even bring it up.
Doomsday
It would
scenario.
get
but-
hostile if we asked about projections, so this is absolutely a big turnaround.
Okay, so our next item is the draft board goals. We tried hard to reflect what we thought we heard in the conversations, and I wanted to highlight a couple of things just before we get into people's comments on these. One is that, and I think it was Craig who made the comment about trying to be specific so we could know whether we got there. So we particularly put that into goals for individual board members, item B, with the foundation, rather than just support the foundation. We got pretty specific. That's something to notice. And the other thing that I was making reference to under fiscal, the combination here of items A and B make a difference in terms of goals. If you look at this chart and you look at balancing the budget by the end of 2020, you will see that we are, after this next budget that we're adopting, we're using green and red, which are our equipment reserves and our set aside that we had made for Campus Center. And those are going away. On the other hand, I've put in a draft goal that says maintain the current set aside for Campus Center improvements, which would be a goal of not using that green as we try to close this gap. So that makes it harder to balance the budget if we do that, but it also helps us keep money that we had hoped to be able to use to at least remodel or improve Campus Center. If we use it to cover our operating gap, we will not have it for projects, whether it's Campus Center or any other high-priority project, we simply won't have it. So those are the trade-offs here that we're looking at, and I just wanted to highlight that for you as you look at these goals.
I think that's really admirable, and I agree with you. But I think that we need to plan for it or be aware that we would have to use those funds. But we have a couple years here, and we may be able, Anthony might be successful in coming in just a shade better because we're not that far away. So
1920, we're pretty much eating half of the campus center set aside, absent a significant change in our budget. So it happens next year that we start using that money, and
Yeah.
you know, we're not too far ahead of the curve to be thinking about it now.
I want to say on the goals as a whole, I think they're excellent. I like the new format and new way of looking at them as long-term and focused and personal. And I think almost everything we talked about last time is captured in this, so I'm really happy with these goals. I'm happy to vote for them.
Peter, you had some comments, I think.
Well, I have one comment on one of the points of discussion at our last meeting had to do with item 1G, I think it was, and I think it was Jonathan who raised the issue of including zero tolerance on sexual assault, with which one could not help but agree. I wanted to expand that to have a broader meaning, and I sent a revised version of this to Dr. Beebe, and he thought it was pretty good. And so I would suggest that we implement this language, which is maintain high standards to help ensure both safety and security for employees and students, including a policy of zero tolerance for sexual assault. That just broadens it to the level of a policy decision, and I like that.
I agree with that, and I would just add sexual harassment as well as assault, just because that's also the legislation that's coming in soon too.
Okay. Would we confuse the issue by adding sexual harassment?
It's a tougher line to draw on a zero tolerance, I think.
Right. Okay,
That's the only thing that comes to my mind.
We can then address that when the bill
Yeah.
passes.
The one other thing that occurs to me here is also the concept of behavior. We have in the past talked about high standards for student behavior, ties to our student conduct, expectations, and all of that. And maybe it's a whole separate bullet, but I do think it's something we have talked about from time to time. Maybe we don't need to call it out, maybe we do, but I'm just thinking about it. With your change, the behavior one goes away, that's all.
With the change, the behavior part is implied.
Well, behavior is reaching off campus as well as on campus.
Oh, okay. I have no objection to reintroducing the term behavior as a focal point, because it's certainly implied.
Can you read back again to me what you had?
Sure. I begin as you do, maintain high standards, and then I changed a little bit to help ensure both safety and security. It is the safety and security that is the umbrella. It doesn't really, in a sense, it doesn't matter what activity it is. If it inflicts harm on safety and security, I think we should have a very close look at it. For employees and students, that's the entire community. And then because it was Jonathan's focal point, I added, including a policy of zero tolerance for sexual assault.
Yeah, I like that.
I really concur. I like it too. In fact, I like the specifics that were added. It's less vague and easier to apply, in my opinion.
Okay, I think I've got that language.
Okay.
Other comments? Oh, yeah, David, I know you had comments.
Yeah, just a couple of questions before I get to that. In regards to student behavior, you mentioned off-campus. What does that like translate into? Does that mean that if a student makes a mistake or something and they go to jail, they're like expelled from CC? How does that kind of?
There's a detailed student conduct expectation. Do you
Well,
want to?
Title IX requires us to investigate sexual assault, if we're still talking about that, for example, not just on the campus and within the campus borders, but with, outside of ourselves here too. And so I think that kind of applies to that part of it.
Yeah, I defined it as outside of sexual assault for a second. I don't know why, but.
Well, I think Hannah Beth Jackson sponsored a bill that allows the college, for example, to take disciplinary action against a student who misbehaves in certain categories off campus, which did not used to be the case.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So yes, there are certain offenses off campus that you will have consequences on campus.
I don't think it's like if you drunk in public is one of them.
Right.
Yeah, I think people are, you make a mistake, but if you assault someone,
Right.
that's something really serious.
Different. And just the second question. So for 3E, to continue work with other local entities to improve affordable housing. I know that when I spoke to Emily over the summer, she told me that she suggested to make a new category for housing. So either way, even with 3E, like how would that kind of translate into, being a board goal? And also, what was the rationale for putting it within another category?
I think it's not, for me at least, it's not a standalone category. Peter, I think, put it best in our last discussion for me, which had to do, we want to be part of the solution, but we are not a standalone situation here. I mean, there are many complex reasons why there are housing issues, and in fact, there are statewide housing issues. I think we're 1.5 million houses short, and there is a push right now to have a statewide bond measure for about $6 billion to $9 billion to build housing in the state. So we're not an isolated situation here. It's a much bigger social problem in California and probably elsewhere in the U.S., at least in certain places. And we're also not the only responsible party in dealing with this issue. So working with others to try to find the right solution seemed like the best kind of approach, at least as a broad goal. And frankly, it's part of the problem our community has with us. It was a high on the list of things that Anthony heard about when he put out his survey when he first arrived. So.
It's not intended to diminish the importance of this goal. It is, in fact, a recognition that there's certain aspects of it over which we will have no control. We can attempt, at best, I think, to influence, and that returns us to behavior, by the way. I mean, some landlords object to having students, period. Why is that? And I think you can link that to the behavior of previous tenants who were students who did not live up to a set of expectations that are realistic, that have to do with cleanliness and behavior. We might want to look at that and be involved in that part of it at some future point. Because I think the community has a legitimate concern about that. Our concern is the opposite. How do we get students into that housing? And one of the ways we affect that is perhaps to affect the behavior.
Marianne.
Marty and I worked with a group of Mesa residents, and this issue obviously would come up with that kind of a group. And they clearly did not expect the college to solve the problem by itself. They were very interested in cooperative projects and in fact have participated in some. And I'm sure there are other neighborhoods that would have that same attitude. So if we're going to even talk about this, we have to not think of it as something that is the college's to solve. It's the college and the community and the students themselves.
And various institutions within the
Absolutely.
district, basically. And that includes the city, for sure, but broader than that. So, David?
Sorry. So I just had a few suggestions, if I could. So for 1B, I just thought of maybe putting in success as well, in addition to access. So increase access and success with a focus on local needs, et cetera. Just that goes back to the trustee conference of, having the goal of raising the percentage, because that's ultimately our goal. And then for 4A, strong board-college relationship, I just had a suggestion that says support students, faculty, and staff through development of stronger relationships with governing bodies. That just comes down to like the joint sessions. I know last year there was the idea of having a joint session, which I thought would be really cool. And just on the really quick last one, I thought of this as Priscilla and Liz were actually speaking, and I mentioned this at the new faculty orientation when I attended as well. Basically, the statement is under 4B, focused college goals. Continue to promote a culture of love and togetherness throughout our campus. That when the new faculty asked me what I believe would be like a good strategy for them to teach, I said that, the point of education and us learning and graduating and things like that is basically to serve each other, to serve human beings, and also to be together like as a community. And I think after those circumstances at Charlottesville, in addition to new faculty, I think that we should try to, although of course we do, but maybe try to promote it more and continue to promote it.
I don't know if others have comments. I have no problem with adding success to B. There's certainly no intent not to have success here. The idea that was in my mind in thinking about these is that item A has to do with student success for everyone who is here, but that we have also in the past perhaps focused on everyone who is a student now on campus. Let's try to get that moving, make it successful, as opposed to going out into the community and reaching out to those people who have not yet come to campus but could benefit by it, which is the access side of the equation. We need to get you on campus before we can talk about success. So just so you know, that's the difference that was running through my mind in thinking about these, but I certainly don't have a problem with adding success to after they get here, whatever.
Yeah.
When I look at this, it seems like it's stuff that we've been doing. Does this feel like people are gonna look at us and be like, okay, people, we're trying to get the budget cut, and then does this seem like we're asking the college community to do more? I want to know.
I'd say yes.
It looks very meaty, and I will say, I think I can tell you personally that in terms of things with the student access and success, yes, all institutions across America have a lot more work to do. But as far as this institution is concerned, I have complete confidence in what Dr. Beebe and Dr. Jarrell are doing in our college, not because I'm in the weeds calling Dr. Jarrell, but because in the community, the comments that I hear about the work going on with our students, with things of equity, to where you have junior highs that, parents maybe didn't feel so comfortable sending their kids, but they are hearing of the work that Santa Barbara City College is involved in some of these neighborhoods, that now these schools are now like I didn't think about sending my kid there. So when I look at this, I don't feel like I have to put something down because it's not going to happen. I have a complete trust in that the work that's happening now it's not perfect, and there's still room to improve. But what you see the faculty doing, and I guess just anecdotally, what the community and the parents and the students are seeing, I think they're doing really good stuff. And I don't know, because I'm not hanging out here. And me, of all people, you don't know me, but I can tell you that if I felt that there was an issue, I think Dr. Beebe would know. And
Oh, yeah.
I can honestly say they're doing a really good job, a really good job. And so if there's anything here that you could tell me, you know what, scratch it, I'm good with it. And I know that it's not like because it's a not ever, it's just a not now, because we really want to narrow our focus to make sure whatever we are doing, we get it right, and that we attend to things with precision and not just shooting off something so massive or we're not going to hit the target.
Well said.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that was part of the attempt to stop saying support this, support that, that we were on an ongoing basis, that we are doing, and we know Dr. Beebe and the college are already doing, and break it down into these elements of, but I agree with you, absolutely. Craig?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I'm pretty happy with this. I know all of us have been listening with attentive ears to outside input, like from the other organizations on campus, from students, from staff, from faculty, on what they might think is wrong with our goals, or maybe concerns about what we're not considering or thinking about. And I'm not picking up on things outside of what we've addressed. And so because of that, even if I don't agree with all of the wording and everything, and I particularly think 1A is pretty vague, but still I do understand what you were trying to convey. And I would be in favor of this. And that's what I had to say. Thank you. If anybody I kind of said that for a reason, because I'm wondering if anybody is got some issues that they haven't maybe brought up in the meeting that we didn't address here.
I'm trying to think about David's suggestion about the joint sessions. In a sense, it's mechanics. You know, you find the time, you find the date, et cetera, and that's kind of a responsibility of, you know, Dr. Beebe and the board president at the time to look for that space, because we do have a busy set of meetings already, as do the other college entities. So I don't have a problem with the idea. I'm just not sure if it needs to actually be a goal to cause it to happen, and maybe that's part of what you were getting at, Veronica.
Yeah, I think that, you know, at least I think at our level, like, you know, when you're saying, well, what does that look like? And the thing is, we don't know what some of these things are going to look like. And so we write these goals knowing that we had a few discussions and that Dr. Beebe knows the intent, so that then he's charged with executing how. And obviously you're part of ASG and working with the students and all that, and you'll have your hand in there. But I think at our level, if we give that direction, that we want that to relationship, then it's up to Dr. Beebe really to decide how that's going to happen. And that is where we delegate all authority to him. And so it's a fancy table we're sitting at, and you can form these goals at a high level. But after that, we hired a competent superintendent to discharge those duties as he sees fit. And so that's, I think, the fine, which is also in our board goal, to maintain that, for us to be mindful of that policy level, where as motivated and intelligent as you are, you probably have a million ideas of how this could roll out. But for now, we only have Dr. Beebe as our superintendent to tell us how he sees that fit. So I don't know, I think that we can trust him in that, and then kind of see how, you know, for next year, like, did we fall short on that? Gosh, did we neglect some group on campus that we need to make it a goal? But as far as I can tell from the reports, from the Academic Senate and from Liz, it seems like people are communicating and driving together.
Mhm.
I don't know if that kind of helps with that. but-
Just a quick comment on some of this. I mean, the idea, and I really do appreciate this idea of a long-term and continuing goal. And when you think about that, we had to really kind of stretch. I mean, these really are stretch goals. Not something that we can necessarily do in 1 year, but when you look at the California Guided Pathways Initiative, for example, and you had mentioned, Craig, that it's a little vague. It is vague. And, you know, that's something that we're going to be working on for the next, help me, Dr. Butler, 3 years? Yeah, next 3 years. So that's a perfect goal in my mind to have in a set of board goals, because particularly when we're talking about a longer term kind of program like that. And I know we all sat through the presentation, and that's a completely recasting the way that we think about student success and provide student services and instruction at the college. And so, I mean, I think that's really a good example of a stretch goal that's going to continue on for the next 3 years. So I just wanted to make that point. And I appreciate your confidence, all of your confidence in us to be able to continue on and do the great work that we're doing.
Yeah, the presentation at the kickoff was, you know, the opening presentation by Davis Jenkins was really excellent. And it had everything to do with the whole discussion we've touched on about what is it that is barriers, potential barriers to student success, and how this program of guided pathways might address those issues. So it's an exciting process, but it's not going to happen overnight.
I would say that I do see, though, utility in just making a statement that we want to maintain positive relationships with the various groups on campus. We don't have to be so specific, but at least saying under strong college board relationship, because I think we can add it in there, like work with the superintendent president to maintain healthy relationships.
Healthy.
Or positive. Sorry,
I like positive.
Positive, yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. But positive relationships with the campus.
Yeah, to me, the joint sessions are valuable and useful, but at the same time, our superintendent president is our point of contact here. We are not individually developing some kind of relationship where we are a conduit of information or ideas from the campus separately. The process here is, you know, we delegate to Dr. Beebe, and we need to be cognizant of that level. Mary Ann?
As someone who has had to write the evaluation a few times, and a few of the others at this table have too, I would say we need to be very careful to make the goals the board's goals. Sometimes we have slipped on that, and that makes it really hard to look at ourselves later. Second of all, we need not to be too specific. These goals are not telling any of us how to behave individually, or the board, the college president, or the board president. So it's very easy to move into the concrete example area, but that's a bad goal. So let's keep it up here.
Thank you. Good comment.
Is it your intent to vote on this tonight?
That was the plan. It is helpful in that Anthony needs to develop his goals that reflect our goals, and then those who get to implement them for him on down throughout the college. So unless anyone has a major objection, I have your change. Maintain high standards to help ensure both safety and security for employees and students, including a policy of zero tolerance for sexual assault. And I have the 1B, adding increase access and success change, I'm ambivalent about the rest as kind of making it into the mix at this point. So,
If it's okay, I'd like to move approval of the presentation as you've just outlined them.
Second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have goals. We have a series of policies coming up here that are all on first reading, which means we're talking about them, not deciding. And let me just have an introduction here, unfortunately. Do you want to say something first
No, go
about
ahead.
it? Or,
Go ahead. I do want to say a couple things about kind of process,
Okay,
but I can do it after your comments. Go ahead.
okay. What we're trying to do is play some catch-up here. And some of these policies have been around a while. We had our retreat in February. We talked extensively about what is now BP 1300, local access and success focus, and BP 3150, optimal college size and efficiency. And after that meeting, Anthony sent around a draft that he drafted based on our discussion. That draft went ultimately to BPAP, who provided input in May of 2017, I believe, or as indicated on there. And the version of the policy that is recommended for us to adopt, but not today, next meeting, presumably, is the longer version. It is the version with what I would call context. And the version that BPAP had provided us was a more abbreviated version without certain context and without what I think was also a policy element, which is the second to last paragraph in BP 1300 about enrollment priorities and consideration given to local students, especially those in the College Promise program. Context, for me, is something that appears in some of our policies, but not all of them. And I'm actually I feel strongly about the policy part that has context, because I think those are some of our best policies. And so I wanted to take your time to mention a couple of those. We have an introduction to board policies and administrative procedures. It says, in adopting these policies, the board intends to focus the district upon its mission and institutional success, and to foster public understanding and support of the district and its educational programs. To me, that says we want to explain who we are and what we value. And a couple of those policies that have what I would call context, I think, are really great examples of what context does for you. One of them is philosophy and criteria for associate degree in general education. These are already adopted. These are policies we have. It says, in part, the awarding of an associate degree represents more than an accumulation of units. It is to symbolize a successful attempt on the part of the college to lead students through patterns of learning experiences designed to develop certain capabilities and insights. Among these are the ability to think and communicate clearly and effectively, both orally and in writing, to use mathematics, to understand the modes of inquiry of the major disciplines, to be aware of other cultures and times, to achieve insights gained through experience in thinking about ethical problems, and to develop the capacity for and sense of self-understanding. In addition to these accomplishments, the student should possess a depth of knowledge in a chosen field. Those, to me, are really important statements about what we are aiming for, but they are not board policy in the drier sense. Another one that comes to mind is academic freedom. And that starts, academic freedom is essential in institutions of higher education if they are to make their proper contribution to the common good. The common good depends upon the free search for truth and its free exposition. It is that which justifies academic freedom, not the interest of the individual faculty member or even the interest of a particular college or university. Academic freedom is the freedom to engage in research, scholarship, or other creative work in order to expand knowledge, publish research findings, to teach, and to learn in an atmosphere of unfettered free inquiry and exposition. We have a similar introduction to Institutional Code of Professional Ethics, where we talk about Santa Barbara Community College district members, including employees, professional volunteers, and trustees, are expected to uphold high standards of ethical conduct and adhere to the principles of equity, honesty, mutual respect, and integrity in performing their professional responsibilities. District members strive to exercise judgments that are fair, consistent, and equitable. They are expected to be open to the opinions of others and judicious in what they say and do as representatives of the district and as stewards of the public trust. They demonstrate a commitment to excellence in education and to upholding the mission of the institution. This is an introduction because later in the policy we have the expectations for ethical behavior. And lastly, just last meeting, we adopted in final form our diversity in employment. The district recognizes that diversity in the academic environment fosters cultural awareness, promotes mutual understanding and respect, and provides suitable role models for all students. So I think, to me, saying why we are doing what we are doing can be a really important element of our policies, and I often, I think, wish we did it more. So that's why, in discussing these policies, the recommendation, not just from me, but in talking to Anthony about it, was to keep the context.
I strongly agree with that.
So I just wanted, because I feel strongly about it, I wanted to take your time and go back, because I also think those were particularly important and eloquent policies that we should remind ourselves of from time to time.
In some ways, those are, I think, some of the more important, and I think maybe some of our best board policies that you've just described right there in terms of academic freedom, what we're trying to do with our students and some other things. I really wanted to talk more about process here, and I appreciate your comments, Marcia. Yeah, we've just had, we had a SERP last year. We had 72 individuals retire, a lot of institutional history. We had some turnover in some of our committees that normally have an opportunity to look at these board policies. And, you know, I know that we're behind, and I know that we all wanted to kind of get these board policies through because they've been backing up. But when it comes to Board Policy 2340 and 2410, I guess looking back on it, I think that we could have maybe done a little bit better job in terms of processing that through the college, and I'd like to make the recommendation that these not be presented as first reading, but as discussion only at this point, and then we can bring them back for first reading next time.
Yeah, the issue here is that for whatever reason with the turnover, that BPAP didn't get back to us on those two policies. And I don't know how the board feels about it, but I don't have a problem with giving BPAP a little more time. We are attempting to move toward a specific time frame to move these policies through, but those two, I don't have a problem with that. The other two, well, three, 1300 3150, and we did take the BPAP recommendation of 6,200, is it?
Yes,
Yeah, 6,200. Those three, we've gotten comments from BPAP, so that's not an issue, I think, process-wise. So let me suggest comments on those three. And anybody?
6:30, Marcia, we do have comments, but it's 6:30 almost.
I know.
I said we're not sleeping here.
It's a long one today.
So I'm just telling you, we are awake. I mean, I like the 2340 to, like I said, I think all board members also have their own extensions out there. And so I think that it is important that what we bring to this table relates to our mission, to our vision, to our goals. And so I definitely think there is a need for this, just so that our time here is spent moving the work of the college forward, because one of our things that we do as trustees is we also protect the institution from undue influence. And so I think that when we meet, people have to be here meeting too. So the more we can streamline our agendas to make sure that they're in line with what is going to be important for the college, I think I'm for that. Because there's a million things that are out there, but don't necessarily move this work forward. If that makes sense.
I mean, I'd say I really enjoy the context, especially for 1300, and I think it should be preserved.
The strikeouts?
No, I don't agree with the strikeout.
Yeah.
The strikeout says to get rid of it. I think we should have it with the context.
Yeah.
I would certainly agree. I mean, context really responds to the question of, why is this here? What are we trying to accomplish? What's not clear is whether the context becomes a viable part of the policy, or whether the introductions to other policy becomes part of the policy. But certainly, I mean, in terms of, or by way of comparison to constitutional analysis, it isn't just the Constitution that's looked at. Members of the Supreme Court look at all kinds of documentation, conversations by the founders, to see what did they really mean. So if we could go back in time, it would be nice to tell the founders to sit down and do a context paragraph for each and every element of the Constitution. It's just a thought.
I couldn't agree more with you.
That would save a lot of time.
I had to think about the idea of describing it as context. To me, it's like a preamble. Like if you have a legal agreement that's written, or a law that's written to address certain situations, or even if it's in somebody's will or their estate, the word context might come into play, but basically it's a preamble. What is the intent? And as an attorney, there's this law, and it says this. It's always useful to know, why it was written, what was the intent of that law. And so the preamble and a summary at the end is an integral part. It bothered me a little bit as when I first got on this board and we had this big push, because shortly before I got on the board, I heard they couldn't even find some of the policies. They lost the file cabinet or something. And so we got this person in and we hurriedly created policies, and then I guess they were found anyway. And we went through all of them. And most of those revisions, and I wasn't on the committee that sat there and painstakingly did that, and some of you were, but I mean, we eliminated the context and the preambles and the summaries. There was a lot of verbiage just done away with. So there was no reference to the intent of the policy in many cases. And that kind of teased at me a little bit and bothered me, but we had a big job to do in a short period of time to get it done. So I'm pleased to see this, and I agreed with your examples, and thank you. We're on the right track, I think.
Mary Ann?
I agree with the way you're headed. I would say that in my experience, when you're writing policies and then explaining them, the first policies come easily and the explanations are one sentence, and the last policies don't come so easily and their explanations are 3 paragraphs. So that's just a danger that happens all the time. And I like policies where the explanation is no more than 2 sentences after the policy.
Well, one thing that's unique about these is that they are specific to us.
Right.
Many of our policies are boilerplate from the league. For all community colleges, they sort of do that. And so when you're talking specific to us, there is more, I think, to say why. Why are we doing this and somebody else isn't?
Do we want to say, you know, where it says access and success for all Santa Barbara students? Because it's more than Santa Barbara, it's also Carpinteria, Goleta, and so should it say something like Santa Barbara, the district, Calvert Community College District, or, you know, so it doesn't seem like it's just Santa Barbara?
Yeah, it should be broader than.
It should be the district.
I know what we meant, I know what you
Yeah.
meant, or whatever was meant here, but
No, I think that's a good catch.
You know, one thing we could do to eliminate verbiage in some of these policies, and that is there could be a preamble to the policies.
Well, there is.
Yeah, and there is, but if we could refer to that preamble, it might save sentences on each policy. As long as it was referred to.
I don't know, I feel like this policy is just gonna, you know, you're never gonna be, no one's ever gonna be able to say, Craig, why aren't you focusing on my neighbor? You're gonna say, go to BP 1300. You know, like, that's all I can do. I'm a policymaker. So I don't know, I mean, I feel like it kind of just really, you're not saying, no, Veronica from the Bay Area, you can't come here, because I did. But you're saying, you know, we're serving all our students, but, you know, this is our backyard, and we have a vested interest in our neighbors and our residents here. And, but yes, the Veronicas of the world that came here from the Bay Area are still going to get a great education.
I'm wondering if we're reaching the point of diminishing returns and whether we shouldn't expedite the balance of.
We don't have a vote to take here, so if we've run out of steam on comments, we can adjourn to closed session, where you hopefully might have a snack.
Yes, we do.
To
Before
help
we
that.
do-
And before we adjourn to closed session, Peter, I know you wanted to.
At our last meeting, we recognized Professor Robert Kassir on the occasion of his 91st birthday, and I was really pleased to have attended that event and spoken for them and with him, and sadly he died Saturday last, and he was really a remarkable man. I mean, if you were looking for a teacher, he'd be the one I'd go to. If you were searching for somebody with a genuine passion for his topic, he'd be my first pick. About the world of politics, he was a genuine Democrat with a small d. He believed in this experiment that we are now undergoing, this participatory democracy, and he urged the students and his colleagues to adhere to that. When election time would come around, he would make it known that he was going to be busy studying the issues and that he was intending to go to the polls by 4 o'clock, and that was his job. And if anybody wanted to know how he was going to vote so that he could influence others' outcome, he would be happy to talk to you. And he would be happy to argue with you about specific issues. And it was infectious. He was simply one of those people who loved his topic and loved the idea of imparting knowledge about it to the students at Santa Barbara City College. He was a pillar of this institution, one of the very first faculty members to come here, and we will miss him. And with that, I'd like to, I guess, postpone the motion to adjourn, but to adjourn this meeting, today's meeting, in his honor.
Right, we're going to adjourn again after the closed session. But no one will be here, so that's helpful. No, I don't. I mean, I don't think you want to.
No.